Hello and welcome to Shoot the Hostage. I'm Dan.
And I'm Sarah.
We're a movie show that delves into a different film each week based around a theme. This season the theme is criminals. Like all good podcasts, this show contains explicit language and mature content, as well as major spoilers for the movie we're covering. So today we're discussing American Animals 2018, continuing our season of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is based on a bizarre real-life heist that happened in December of 2004.
I've only just realised that we somehow got a true crime film in season 1 and in season 2.
True crime?
Yeah.
What was a true crime in season 1?
Fruitvale Station.
Of course.
And I also think it's really interesting that we've gone straight from Thief, which was populated entirely by true professionals,
Yeah,
to absolute bumbling idiots who couldn't pull off a heist if they tried.
absolutely. Yeah, it came out in 2018. It was directed by Bart Layton, who had directed a documentary called The Imposter, which I believe you've seen.
I have, yeah.
Any good?
I think it's really good, yeah. I scanned over the director's CV and basically he seems more involved in the documentary side of things than fiction.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting because this is a meeting of the two. Would you call it docudrama?
I guess. I was trying to think of this when I was writing my
Yeah.
notes and I couldn't come up with something. So I just wrote documentary / drama.
Docudrama. There you go.
So yeah, I guess so. You shortened it for me because I've saved so much time by not saying that extra bit of wording.
Think of all the things you could do.
Well, if I did that with every wording that I say, I think I could probably save a week total.
In your whole life.
In my whole life.
Yeah. I mean, you already take letters out of words in the shopping list. So why not just
True.
apply that to everything else?
True.
Make everything illegible. No, The Imposter is really good, actually.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know about that story, but it was partly the inspiration for the Julia Ducournau French movie Titan,
Oh, was it?
which you hated.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Because I'm familiar with the concept of a documentary. And I hadn't considered it until I'm sure you told me at the time when we were watching Titan,
Yeah.
but I've slept since then.
But yeah, it's a really well-made documentary, so I would definitely recommend that as well.
Okay. Yeah, so Evan Peters as Warren Lipka, Barry Keoghan,
Keoghan, yeah.
question mark?
No, I looked it up. That is apparently the correct way to pronounce it.
Well, we'll go with that then.
Yeah.
He plays Spencer Reinhard. Blake Jenner plays Chaz Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared Abramson as Eric Borsuk.
And Ann Dowd.
Ann Dowd
Don't
as
forget Ann Dowd.
Betty Jean Gooch and Udo Kier
Oh, yeah.
in one scene.
Yeah. Decent cast.
Yeah. So the director, Bart Layton, had read an article on a flight.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it just opened up communication with these guys that were in prison for carrying out this heist.
Oh, so when were they released from prison?
Now you're asking me questions. I don't know the answer to that.
Heist kind of, I don't want to say the heist happened because it didn't really. The heist was attempted in 2004.
It did happen.
Well, it did and it didn't.
They robbed some stuff.
It was partly successful.
I'm not saying it was
but
successful
mostly a
heist,
clusterfuck.
but it was a heist, and they did heist some things.
All right, okay. Semantics.
But we'll get to it. Yeah, so he basically read this article. I don't know if it was the same article I had read, and a lot of other sources cite this article as well by John Falk, who wrote it in, I think it came out in 2015 on Vanity Fair. And it could have been that one, but he certainly read an article on a flight and was like, this is a great story. I need to get in touch with these boys.
Yeah, this sounds like a project that was kind of near and dear to him then.
I guess so.
Because I think that's the problem with a lot of true crime content, isn't it? There seems to be like a sensationalist angle, like an attempt to take advantage of the subjects or the subject matter. And I don't know, I didn't get that here. There was no like salaciousness. It was very funny. But I think the presence of the people who were involved kind of changed the perspective a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. They could have just done a run-of-the-mill, or not run-of-the-mill, because it's such an interesting story.
Yeah, nothing about this is run-of-the-mill.
No, they could have made a more traditional dramatisation of it. But I think the fact that he included interviews with the guys, which was cut together in scenes quite cleverly.
Yeah.
It just reminding you that these are real people and, oh shit, like I hope they back out at some point or do, don't go through with it, or it makes it, I don't know, it gave me an extra kind of, it was easier to empathise, I guess, with the whole situation. I don't mean with the guys doing the heist necessarily, although I did at times, but just the whole, I guess I just wanted everything to be okay. And it just added to the tension of the thing, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So before we get too stuck in, I've got a very, very, very short synopsis from Letterboxd.
Okay, we like short synopsises.
We do. So, Lexington, Kentucky, 2004. 4 young men attempt to execute one of the most audacious art heists in the history of the United States.
Okay.
I didn't really know what to expect. I remember watching the trailer probably a good 6 months before the film came out, and instantly the trailer sold me. It's become really commonplace since, but it's one of the first trailers I remember seeing that really utilised sound in the editing. Does that make sense?
They use sound to punctuate a scene or a cut or the music.
So the best kind of example I can come up with is like Baby Driver, for example, where the editing is done in time with the music.
I see.
It's on the beat. And they did a similar thing in this trailer. And it, like I say, it became really commonplace.
You're right. Yeah, I do remember seeing a lot of Marvel stuff, actually. Yeah. It's maybe, say, like 2020 onwards. And a lot of them would do that. You're right.
This seemed like the first kind of one that popularized that technique.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something about the trailer really grabbed me and I was really excited to watch this.
Yeah.
And then when I sat down to watch it, and the first time it cuts to the actual people, the interviews, the talking heads, I was so thrown because none of that is in the trailer. It's kind of a bit of a bait and switch, but in the best possible way. I'm really grateful that I didn't know that going in. So if you haven't adhered to our spoiler warning thus far, I'm really sorry.
We didn't give a spoiler warning, did we?
We do in the intro.
Oh, yeah, true, we do.
But yeah, so that kind of threw me a little bit, but like I say, in the best possible way. Did you know about the insertion of the interviews prior to watching? No,
I don't think I had a clue what this movie was about at all.
Yeah, because it happens, like they insert the talking heads pretty quickly.
Yeah, yes, it's like first 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the opening scene is, well, not the opening, the very opening scene, you see that they're putting the old man makeup on, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But then after that, it cuts to Spencer, and it's him being interviewed by the board, I guess, of the college that he's going to attend. It was a good way to introduce that character because it showed you someone being interviewed. So when it cut to the real Spencer after that shortly, it was just kind of, it was a way to keep that consistency, I found. Like it didn't just beat you over the head straight away with this is a person talking at you, because they sort of shot like that in a because it's an interview. So it was that kind of style. I enjoyed that. But it was the kind of questions they were asking him were about himself. So it was also like revealing about his character because he couldn't answer those questions. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I hadn't thought of that actually. That was a really clever way of introducing that angle. Yeah, I thought so. And it didn't occur to me until today, actually. I just put the first 15, 20 minutes on just to remind myself of how the movie starts, because the heist I've seen a couple of times now and I'm super familiar with that. But yeah, and it occurred to me when I was watching, like, this is a really good opening, actually. And it really eases you into the style, like, this is what we're doing here. Yeah, because it could have been exceptionally jarring. Yeah. And I don't know, it's curious to me that the director has kind of one foot in the world of fiction and one foot in the world of documentaries, because that's not often the case. It tends to be that you are a documentary filmmaker and that's it. And you stay in that lane forever. Yeah, that does tend to be the case, doesn't it? I don't know, to be honest. Like with documentaries and stuff, I don't pay as much attention to the filmmakers as I do with completely fictional stories. I don't know why that is. I mean, there's the really famous ones like Nick Broomfield, for example. Don't think he's ever made a feature film that's fiction. Werner Herzog is an exception. He's done both. But it does tend to be that they pick a lane. So I'm really interested to know what made him choose both in this instance, because I can't remember having seen this technique before. No, but you do have documentaries where they have little pieces of, like reenactments, sort of short dramatizations, like this was me walking towards the car, but it's very small and it doesn't really mean anything. But you're right, I don't recall seeing it done to this detail where they're weaving in and out of the actors playing the characters and the real life people who the actors are portraying and interviewing them in that way.
Yeah,
I don't,
like,
because it's a proper like feature,
yeah,
but then mixed with real life footage, and I guess it.
but that never undercuts the tension or the
No.
dramatization. It's really seamless.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure entirely how they pulled it off. I guess the closest comparison, and it's on my mind because we saw it recently, would be Reality. But that was kind of a dramatization taken from transcripts.
Yeah.
That I think kind of like we saw some of the transcripts on scene, it cut away. And I think there was kind of voiceover from the actual police recordings. Yeah. So similar, but not quite the same.
That's the closest comparison that I can think of since you've just mentioned that. Yeah, that's a good one, that. Yeah.
But nowhere near as good as this. Or nowhere near as engaging, should I say.
Yeah, I feel like that one was an interesting experiment, and it was pretty good, but this one is entertaining in a way that a feature should be, but also telling you about this ridiculous thing that these 4 young boys did, and
these ridiculous humans. Like, I feel like we have to start at the beginning. So Warren Lipka, what is your perception of this odd man?
I mean, he's kind of amusing, but he's the sort of person that you could only, like, after an hour at the pub with him, just make your excuses and you go, and you
bit of a live wire
before you get into too much trouble. Yeah, you think like the first 3 pints is going to be okay, but when the shots start coming out, maybe you leave and let him get into as much trouble as he wants.
Yeah, it's funny because I can't think of better casting than Evan Peters.
Yeah, it really works.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a bellend, the character.
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
so
100%.
like,
I mean, they introduced that element very, very quickly. I think one of the first times you see the real Warren is he's pointing at the tattoo on his arm, and it's this really crude, naive prison-style tattoo of a T-Rex trying to reach a pull cord on a lamp. And if that isn't like the best descriptor for his entire persona, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And I love the painstaking way that they replicated that on Evan Peters as well.
Well spotted. No, he does a super good job because like I was saying, he's a massive bellend, this character, this guy.
He's a total clown.
But Evan Peters is charismatic enough, and he gives you kind of a grey area performance. Like he's not going overboard with it. You can still root for the characters that he plays in a way because he humanizes them. I don't quite know how he does that, but because everything I'm seeing in the film, all of his actions, you idiot, you're robbing meat from somebody who probably needs to sell that meat to feed their family. You're doing this book heist. You seem to be the ringleader, although there are different perspectives on how it actually went down, which is something that they weaved into the film as well.
I really enjoyed the whole, I don't know, I guess it's as close to an unreliable narrator trope as you can get. Just the different recollections and how they chose to portray those on screen was really fun. Really fun. And could have been really cloying, could have been just really grating, but they kind of nailed that. But yeah, Warren's a strange one because everything that you've said is true. Absolute clown of a human, costume of a man. But there's something about him. Like, he shows contrition. He's the only one during the interviews that shows any real emotion, I feel, when they're talking about the librarian, Betty Jean. And he actually does start crying. So he shows remorse. He shows guilt. He's not dead inside. He's not this unfeeling monster or a narcissist or a sociopath or anything. I think he's just, I don't know, he just seems like an unpredictable person who thought he was doing something that would get him in the history books, or like it felt genuine. But considering he ropes his friends into this really harebrained scheme that could never in a million years be pulled off, not by these people anyway, he's still not unlikable. And I think that is down to what you've said. It's not just Evan Peters' performance, because it's true of the actual Warren Lipka as well. There's something likable about him. And I think it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm misreading him, but a genuineness. Like, I felt like he thought it was more mischief than actual crime.
Who knows? I mean, they were young boys. They wanted to do something extraordinary, as you've said earlier. And I think it was just one of those things that just kind of spiraled. And I don't know how, because they spent like 9 months planning this thing.
Did they? Was it as long as that?
Yeah,
I know they there were changing of the seasons during the film to indicate passage of time, but I didn't realise it was as long as that.
Yeah, well, the heist took place in December of 2004, but they were planning it as early as March 2004, and possibly even slightly before that. But you would think at some point, and the Spencer character says, I was waiting for something unsurmountable to happen, some kind of thing that we couldn't get past that would stop us, but they never really stumbled across that. Although they would have if they'd have not ignored the red flags that they were getting along the way.
The multitude of red flags.
Yeah, which, I mean, they were simultaneously very clever about things, but also very stupid about things. They didn't nail everything, but they did get quite a lot right.
Yeah, they thought of most things, but they were naive in the way that only teenagers can be. Were they teenagers at the time? I'm assuming if they were college aged.
I guess so. Yeah, not 19 maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely don't have your shit together at that age.
No, you don't. You do some silly things, but you would think that you took yourself out of it after, I don't know, a day and a half. But
9 months
plan it for 9 months is insane. And it's just one of those conversations you have with your mates. You're drunk. Oh, it'd be funny if we did this thing.
Yeah.
But you wake up in the morning, you're like, that was a fun conversation, wasn't it? But they decided to continue it and keep it going, and then rope their friends into it. The other two guys who came on board later.
Well, on behalf of those people, I would just like to say, when you have drunken conversations with your friends and plan things, I just want to pipe up and say some people take those plans seriously and go and get tattoos with their friends' names on.
Who would do a thing like that?
I have no idea. And then show their friend and demand that their friend follow through on their part of the agreement.
Who would do that?
Don't know, but I've still got it to this day. Yeah, I don't know. I think...
Have you ever stolen anything?
I will neither confirm nor deny that. Nothing truly valuable.
Okay.
I will say that.
All right.
You can't prove a thing. No, I guess it was just like a big game of chicken, wasn't it? They were all...
Yeah, well, it's a game.
I feel like all four of them were probably waiting for somebody else to go, nah. But none of them did.
Yeah.
So it happened.
It just happened, yeah. I don't know, they clearly wanted it to happen.
There was a part of them, for sure.
They abandoned one attempt. So they tried it again. You would think, even at that point, they're like, we're in a costume now, in the old man costume, which I think was a pretty clever idea, but didn't really work. You would think even at that point, their hearts are racing and everything. You think, what am I doing? This is insane what I'm doing. I'm wearing my granddad's coat and a false beard and some grey eyelashes. You just take a look at your life at that point, wouldn't you? And just question everything that you've done up to that point.
I don't know. I think you're underestimating the draw of Warren Lipka's chaotic neutral energy.
Yeah, and he loved Ocean's 11.
Yeah, clearly.
He wanted to be George Clooney.
Well, didn't they use one of the same tracks?
Yes.
From Ocean's 11.
Little less conversation, a little more action, whatever that song's called.
So that was clearly a nod. Like,
yeah.
It wore its influences on its sleeve.
Yes, it did. And they did enjoy those movies. I believe when the heist was happening, the first one had come out. Okay. So they'd seen that a lot. But they actually, post-heist, they went to a screening of Ocean's 12, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And they were just chatting about how, it was similar to their situation. And it turned out that there was some FBI agents behind them. They were listening to their conversation.
No.
Yeah. And that was, they were suspected at the time. It wasn't just like a random thing, but they were being followed and they were obviously making references to them having pulled off a heist and been successful at it.
God.
Semi-successful.
Oh, well, we'd definitely put a pin in this because you know far more about the real events than I do. I'm really curious to see what made it to screen and what didn't.
Okay.
So put a pin in that.
Pin in it.
Okay.
Consider it pinned.
I want to go back quickly to the stylistic choices. I can't think of any other examples, but I feel like I've seen that unreliable narrator trope where two characters are recalling the same story and the events on screen keep changing in line with what each one is saying, like the discrepancies in the interviews. And I just thought it was really neat the way they did that. Yeah,
it worked. But it's also kind of a bit of a trope in heist movies as well, where not necessarily where people are misremembering events, but they're exploring different avenues of things that can happen as well. So
that's true.
It is kind of fitting within the genre that the film is as well. So
that's a really good point. A really good point.
Thank you. Should we end now?
No.
I made a good point.
Don't get teased.
I'm allowed one good point per episode.
Well, you've had it now. That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Just idiocy from here on out.
Oh, fuck it. I'm going to cut it out.
Did you notice, going back to movies and influences. When they started planning the heist, they rented a bunch of movies to draw their inspiration from. And one of them was Thief.
In our last episode, we covered Thief. So that was handy for us. Yeah. What else was on there? Did you write any others down?
Didn't. No, I was just excited when I saw Thief.
I want to say I saw The Driver.
Oh, maybe. The Walter Hill one. Okay.
Definitely Ocean's 11, or that was at least referenced later on in the movie, as we've said already. I mean, that's what I would do. I'd watch a bunch of heist films if I was planning a heist.
Would you?
Yeah.
Well, it's on record now.
I'm not going to plan a heist, you understand.
Okay.
Like, I wouldn't, if I was going to plan a heist, I wouldn't let anyone know that I was planning a heist. And I wouldn't record any information about me having planned a heist and keep it for anyone to find. I
feel like you're just saying all this now to cover your back. This is like a double bluff.
No.
Well, they'll never suspect me because I just said I would never do it.
Yeah, I said I was innocent. I put my hand on that really old book and my other hand in the air, and I said, I promise I'm going to tell
you. Do we do that in this country, or is that an American thing?
I don't know. I've never been to court.
I have.
Did you have to touch the book?
I don't remember doing.
No.
Maybe I did. I had to swear to tell the truth.
Yeah, I promise I'm definitely going to tell you the truth.
Cross my heart.
Yeah, it always baffles me, that does. Like, why are we doing this? Like, if someone wants to lie, they're going to lie. They don't give a shit
if they're going to lie on the stand, they're going to lie when you ask them if they're going to lie. Yeah. It's not going to be limited to everything beyond that question.
There's a major flaw in that. Yeah. We're just wasting everyone's time here.
Did you notice...
No, I did not notice.
I did not. Did you notice at certain points throughout that certain scenes were inverted?
Does inverted mean backwards?
Yeah, some of the scenes were flipped.
Oh, yes,
like
I know
some
what you mean.
logos were back to front, like mirrored, basically. Some of the opening scenes were kind of upside down and stuff. Apparently, Bart Layton did that all quite intentionally to kind of mimic things like Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream as a means to unsettle the viewer, but in a very, very, very subtle way. Because obviously what you're seeing is very familiar to you, but it's just something's a little bit off.
Yeah.
So it's quite a clever way of almost like pulling the rug out from under you and making you feel nervous without necessarily knowing why. I quite like that.
Yeah, I see that in films. The most recent thing I think I remember seeing that in was Midsummer, when they're approaching the commune.
The opening credits of the Candyman reboot.
Yeah.
They did that too.
I think in this movie, for me, it made me feel like I was seeing the world perhaps through the main boy's eyes, in that maybe you're seeing something that's kind of familiar, but through a slightly different lens. Like, the world that they're seeing is wrong. Like, it's upside down. Like, I can see these things and I know what they are, but what is it? Why is it? Or, I feel a bit weird here. That was how it made me feel. That was my interpretation of that scene. But it was unsettling too.
I mean, the film, the characters and the characters' actions are all fairly chaotic. So all of these techniques, I think, worked. They fit so well. And there's a bunch of other really interesting techniques as well. Like some of the stuff is in black and white periodically, but I think that's kind of after they've been watching a black and white crime movie to get tips from.
Right.
Some split screen stuff, miniatures at one point, and it's just all of it kind of adds up to being just a bit unsettling. Like I said, it's sort of, it itches the back of your brain and you can't reach it, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
It just doesn't sit quite right, but I've never seen it done quite like this. And there are so many different techniques utilized that it could have quite easily tipped into being obnoxious. But it never got there. It was all, despite all of the different stuff that was on display, it still kind of felt restrained. Obviously, you mentioned the cast at the start. We've talked about the four main guys. How did you feel about Ann Dowd and Udo Kier's characters? Well, Udo Kier wasn't in it very much.
No, he sort of popped up and I was like, oh, hello, mate.
Yeah.
I like seeing you in movies. And then he was gone just like that. Poof, he was gone. Ann Dowd, I'm not familiar with Ann Dowd. I'm sure I've seen stuff with her in it.
She was, you've seen Hereditary, right? She was in Hereditary?
Yes,
we need to rewatch that
she was in Hereditary. I don't really remember that movie outside of that one scene, and we all know what scene we're talking about.
Scene.
I do need to rewatch that, actually. Let's put that on the pile.
Okay.
So Ann Dowd, she was really good in this.
Yeah.
And, Betty Jean Gooch also seems like a really cool person as well, so...
I thought so. Like, initially when you meet her, she seems almost a bit snooty, like a bit stuck up, maybe.
Oh, right.
That was the vibe I got anyway, but she seemed to really give a shit about her job. Like, she seemed to care deeply about the welfare and the upkeep of these books and making sure that they're accessible to people who are truly interested in them and, you know, keeping them safe and everything. And then her trust and her goodwill gets hugely violated. And just to kind of skip to the end to talk about the interviews, we don't see the real Betty Jean Gooch until the end. And I guess that's because we're not supposed to know what her fate was. Like, maybe things could have gone truly tits up and she didn't make it or something. But I really appreciate the fact that of all the interviews, she's the one that gets the last word.
Well, it could be a little bit of logistics actually in there as well, not to piss on your strawberries there. But I think what I heard about Betty Jean Gooch is she went through this really traumatic experience during this heist.
Oh, it must have been,
and she was scarred by it. And she actually cites having watched the film as a huge part of her. It led to her forgiving the four boys, and it just really helped her process and heal and get their side of things. So I guess maybe like her watching the film is removing her imagination and or not removing her memory of it, because you can't do that, but help her to overcome her experience, I guess, because she was seeing that the boys weren't intentionally trying to harm anyone and they were just stupid boys.
I think that's it though, isn't there?
I think that maybe her watching that film, she at the end was quite happy to do a piece maybe for the end of the film. I don't know.
That makes me really happy for her anyway, that it was like a healing process at least. But I guess based on what we see in the media, we are led to believe that people who pull off heists are hardened criminals, absolute arseholes, or, you know, they're doing it for a means to an end or whatever, not just a bunch of fucking idiot kids who think it'll be cool.
No.
So I guess she would naturally have gone to the worst case scenario in her mind. That her experience of it is that she was, you know, not brutalized as such, but in this unthinkable, terrifying situation, she didn't know their motivations.
Anything could have happened in her mind. Yeah,
you would fear for your life, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that I'm glad she got something out of it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it took a long time for her to process that stuff, and you never truly get over something like that, I imagine.
No, probably not.
But it's just another example of severe lack of judgment by the kids.
I would say lack of foresight as well, but not if they spent 9 fucking months planning the damn thing.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, you know, you talk yourself out of these things. I mean, I can talk about this now because I got arrested and charged. But no, it's not that bad. But when I was a kid, you do silly things, and there was a car parked on the road, and I decided to just whip out the radio like a complete idiot. Right? I never do that now, obviously, but I was 15 years old, probably had a couple of beers, and there just happened to be a police car driving past as I was doing it. So it occurred to me in the moment, it happened. But like, if I'd had that thought, and then had to like travel to wherever to get this thing, then I would have been like, no, I'm going to talk myself out of this.
Well, this is it. I understand acting on an intrusive thought way more than I do spending the best part of a year planning this thing, because like 9 months is such a long time at that age.
It's a long time, and that's part of like, if it was more more of a spontaneous thing, I think I would have more sympathy for them. But they had every opportunity to to just stop this plan in its tracks, and they didn't do it. So although I kind of feel bad for them that they had to be incarcerated for 7 years, you know, they did deserve it. They did put someone through a really traumatic experience.
Yeah, and they're unlikely to do it again. So hopefully the judicial system did its job and deterred them from further crime.
Hopefully so, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But just to make sure you're not worried, I did only get a 5-year caution for that. I didn't do any prison time.
Lies. He's still wearing the ankle bracelet now. I can see it.
I did about 6 hours in the cell, which was not the nicest place to be.
No, I can imagine. Not as a 15-year-old, especially.
Apparently the police phoned my mum and told them they had me, and they were free to come down and collect me, and I would get interviewed and stuff. But my mum decided that she would leave me in there for as long as possible, just to teach me a lesson. That'll learn you, she said.
I like your mum.
Yeah, I never did it again.
Well, it worked then, didn't it?
Scared the fuck out of me. I was just like, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Why did I do this? And they were like, but it's a really old radio. What were you going to do with this old thing? You know, it's not even worth a quid, you know? And I was like, I don't know. It was there, wasn't it?
You're a moron, and it was an effective punishment from the sounds of things.
I was a stupid idiot that acted spontaneously. I was not planning this for 9 months.
If you'd been planning to steal a shitty car radio for 9 months, I would say you've got bigger problems.
Yeah.
than criminal impulses.
True.
So this takes place at Transylvania.
Yeah.
Transylvania
Not
College.
Not that one.
So as a horror fan, I'm always kind of excited. I was so disappointed to learn that Transylvania is just the Latin word for beyond the trees.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought it would be like the Latin word for dark castle.
For vampires.
Scary time, sucky blood. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Obviously, it has strong ties to like the horror genre, for example, which is why I got excited. But no, just beyond the trees.
Yeah.
So I did read that the director obviously had been in contact with the real life criminals. I don't even want to call them criminals. The real life guys for a while. I don't know how the film came about. I don't know how the structure came about. But he intentionally said that he didn't want any of the actors to meet their counterparts, the real life counterparts, because he found the real life people to be so sympathetic when telling their story that he feared the actors would portray them too differently. He didn't want them to sympathize with them. Yeah. He just wanted a truthful retelling. Yeah,
just like leaving room for creativity, I guess, as well, and their own interpretations. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's smart.
I would like to know more about the real life heist. So that's where you come in.
All right. So the film is pretty accurate to what happened. There doesn't seem like there was much embellishment at all.
Okay.
It was a pretty accurate retelling of what I read the real story to be.
Even down to, because there's some conjecture towards the end of the film as to whether Warren actually went to Europe like he said he did and met with what do they call them, the fences or whatever, the guys who were going to fence the stolen items. Do we know what was true? Because the real life guys were kind of cagey towards the end when they said, like, Spencer said he didn't know if Warren even did any of that. Warren kind of gave a bit of a sheepish shrug. So I'm really curious to know what of that was true.
We don't know.
We'll never
know. It's pretty much like the film. Right. Yeah, we've got to take his word for it. There's no further insight into that because he says that he faked a passport.
In 2004?
Yeah, apparently so.
Post 9/11, he got through on a fake passport. I'm going to call bullshit on that.
So something that wasn't in the film, but was hinted at, was the relationship between Warren and Eric. And they had a fake ID business together.
Okay. Is Eric the guy with the glasses?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were going to school together and they had a fake ID business. So I think that Warren got the details for the guy they met in New York and then ultimately the guy that they met, supposedly he met in Amsterdam.
Okay.
So everything is his word and there's no way to prove it because, as I say, he went back to his criminal mates and was like, I need a passport to get over to Amsterdam. $2,500 later, he's on the plane. So he says, but there's no way to prove it.
So he's going to take those secrets to the grave, is he?
I guess so.
You did mention that there was that incident where they went to the cinema to see Ocean's 12 and the FBI were behind them.
Yes.
We don't see that in the film.
No.
Based on that, what else didn't make it into the film?
Post-heist, when Chaz is driving a grey minivan out and it's got the three of them in the van.
Yeah.
He improvised to let them out. That wasn't part of the plan. He said, you guys get out. That actually happened.
Okay.
Happened in the film, happened in real life, supposedly. And they were in this neighbourhood. Now, what they didn't show in the film is apparently they got chased by some thugs.
Okay.
This is what they say.
Yeah.
And they'd had these expensive books on them.
Yeah.
But they were so scared that they were trying to flag down some police officers while they were trying to escape these thugs.
Oh my God.
So it could have gone down very differently. But eventually Chaz came back and picked them up.
This really is an insane story, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And it could have gone any direction at any point as well. It's fascinating.
The butterfly effect possibilities here are quite something.
And they sort of wrapped up the end quite quickly as well, whereas there was a bit more. It took 2 months about for them to be caught from carrying out the heist to having been caught.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they used the name Walter Beckman at the library to book the appointment with Betty Jean Gooch. So
was the stuff when they took the books that they did have to the auction house, was that something that they actually did?
Yes.
Oh, idiots. Oh my God. And is that why they used the name Beckman again?
Yes. So the problem is that they set up a Yahoo account in the name Walter Beckman.
Right.
And they used that to, I think, they used the name certainly with the library, but they also used that email address to book the appointment with Christie's, the most popular auction house in thing in the world, mate.
Yeah.
So, and apparently when they went to the auction house, the person there was just like, these guys are clowns. I don't know what's going on here. They're trying to dress smart, but they're obviously not very wealthy, and they're wearing trainers with these suits and stuff like that. But because they'd used the same name, Yahoo eventually released the information to the police on their servers regarding their email, and they were able to see their emails. They'd seen that they'd booked an appointment at Christie's. They went to Christie's, and in their infinite wisdom, Spencer had given Christie's his mobile telephone number.
Oh, so that was real.
So the police simply phoned the telephone.
Oh my God.
Hi, this is Spence. Please leave a message. And also the phone was in his dad's name. So they got caught. Yeah, they got caught. It was a silly mistake in the end, really. And then I think they were suspected at that point. The police had a name. They Googled the name. Their picture of Spencer and Warren playing soccer on Google. They started gathering their intel. They went to the Ocean's 11 screening, which we spoke about, and heard them talking about the heist they've got on bang to rights here. A couple of days later, they raided their apartments. And just, I guess the cherry on top as well is that they also had all of the stuff, all of their plans from the heist, the little models.
Holy shit.
Like a heist plan written down, and they had an accounting ledger for expenses.
What?
I know, it's insane. That's what I mean. Like, they were very smart in some ways, but then so stupid in others. Particularly
the paper trail.
Particularly
when
after they realised that they'd given their own number at Christie's, they kind of knew that the game was up then. They could have done something, some kind of damage limitation. Certainly, I don't know, you would get rid of the evidence pointing it to you, right? But yeah, the police, the description at Christie's matched their description. They've got everything. They've got everything they need, and they went to court. They pled guilty because what other choice is there? But the interesting thing is that they each had an opportunity to rat out the other ones, and none of them took it. They all stood by each other and went, nah, you know what, we all did this crime, we're all going to serve time, but if we embellish or say someone was a bit worse than me,
or minimize their own role,
minimize their time, but increase someone else's, and they didn't want to do that. See, do you see what I mean when I kind of like them? Yeah.
They're not.
They were just some dumb kids that made a stupid mistake that they should have realised, but ultimately they were caught. They served their time.
I mean, they definitely deserve to serve time. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. If not for, if it was a victimless crime, if there was nobody there, then I would have more sympathy for them. But the fact that they traumatised this woman for the rest of her life, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the point in which you go, this is not cool. I'm not saying that I agree with stealing expensive artwork, although I do come from a country that was their major pastime for a long time.
We do have quite a storied history in terms of stealing artifacts.
No, it's ours now because it lives here.
It's in the British Museum, but you can't have it back.
We would like people to see this artwork, so we put it here in a box in the basement for everybody to see.
Give it back, you thieving shits.
Give it all back.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to talk about, before we start wrapping up, I really, really want to talk about the heist itself. I cannot remember the last time my butt cheeks were glued so firmly together.
Pretty tense.
This is the most stressful watch in recent memory.
Yeah.
And I've seen this film like 3 or 4 times now, so I knew what was coming. But the sound design, the score, the editing, the acting, everything stacks up just to make it the most nail-biting series of events.
Yeah.
Especially when things start going wrong and they try to think... Like, they were really good at planning, terrible at thinking on their feet.
Yeah.
No improvisational skills whatsoever. And it made me feel nauseous. I was so stressed.
Well, Warren didn't really stick to the plan either, did he? Because he was meant to have stunned Betty Jean before Eric got there. That didn't happen.
Well, I'm guessing
they grossly underestimated the weight of the books.
Yeah. Oh man!
But it was some of the most tense 15 minutes of film that I've seen. A lot of it, sound design, as you mentioned, was like that ticking kind of clock and beating heart, or however you want to interpret it. It really helped with that, and it was super well acted as well. You could see Eric just wanted to just get out of there, but Warren wouldn't let him. He was like, no, come on, we're doing this.
I don't think I've seen that guy in anything else, but he was great.
I thought he was a Jonas brother.
No, he's not a Jonas. Unless there's a fourth one that I don't know about.
How is it? Yeah, so just like 2 Jonas Brothers.
I thought there were 3.
There's a trio of Jonas Brothers. Okay, and that's
a
not
trifecta of Jonai.
Yeah. Jonas Brothers wouldn't be in a heist movie, would they?
I don't know. Don't pigeonhole them, Dan.
don't
You don't know what they're capable of.
True.
Obviously, Barry Keoghan, everyone's favourite weird little dude.
Yeah, he's great.
This was probably the first thing I think I saw him in.
Would have been for me.
Yeah.
Certainly.
I've seen him crop up in a lot since. Obviously, Banshees of Inisherin, Killing of a Sacred Deer we watched recently.
Yeah.
He crops up a lot.
Yeah.
And he's great in everything.
Yeah.
Calm with Horses is another good one that he's in.
Eternals.
Yeah. I didn't care for Eternals, but he was one of the bright spots. Him and Lauren Ridloff had excellent chemistry.
I quite liked that movie.
They were the only 2 characters that I felt really invested in.
Yeah.
And Kumail was good too.
But Barry Keoghan wasn't part of the heist, was he? Because Spencer purposely didn't go in for the heist bit because, well, that's where he went to college. Everybody knew who he was.
He knew the finger would be pointed squarely at him.
It's maybe not, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he was on the roof,
He was on the roof
yeah.
scoping things out. But Eric and Warren were doing the main heist bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, pretty much played out as per the film. Yeah, but super, super tense. And like even when they left the room and they're carrying the books down the elevator and they get out on the wrong floor, that all happened. And then obviously they couldn't find the exit, so they ended up dropping the books. Well, they actually stopped for a rest because the books were really heavy, so they stopped for a rest. And then,
they hadn't planned on cardio.
Yeah, and then one of the people that worked there, Susan Brown, I think her name was, so spotted them in the stairwell and started chasing them out.
Okay.
Boys, stop. But yeah, she actually only saw 3, or I was aware of only 3 of the boys because, as we said, Spencer was on a roof. But she kind of, in a weird way, said 4, and I don't know why.
Women's intuition.
Yeah,
Never doubt it.
Maybe
Never
she
fails.
Only believed in even numbers, or who knows. But yeah, so they were looking automatically, after she said that, looking for 4 people instead of 3. But she was only aware of 3, so that was, they were always getting caught, so... Yeah.
Idiots. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of my favorite scenes. Like the heist in isolation is one of my favorite scenes of like the past decade, maybe.
Yeah, it's a really good heist scene as well.
Yeah.
Like particularly because how everything leading up to it, the first attempt, all of their planning, we're getting to know these guys. So when we're there, it really does feel like you want them to either get away with it and nobody get hurt, or get caught, or back out. Preferably back out would be the one that I would want them to do.
But maybe wouldn't lead to such an interesting film.
It's just an hour and 45 minutes of me going, oh no, lads, really?
I don't think this is such a good idea.
No, come on.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that Spencer was quite vocal about wanting to not be present during the actual heist. Because I think I don't know, I feel like maybe he did minimize his own role in it to some degree during the Talking Heads, because from what I've read, he did become truly obsessed by these books. And I think it was only because of that Warren even cooked up this idea to begin with. So yeah, I think maybe he needed to perhaps accept a larger portion of the blame than he seemed willing to during the interviews.
Yeah. Well, they all did it, they all...
Yeah.
Someone could have been a ringleader, but that doesn't mean that you have to go along with what the ringleader is saying.
No.
You have to question these things. If someone's asking you to do a heist, consider not doing it, is what I would say.
Yeah. Don't consider the heist at all.
Give it some thought.
Yeah. But then no should be your answer.
Yeah. But think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it first. It's important, I think, to play out different scenarios in your head. Because then you can play out the scenario where you get caught immediately and go to prison.
Yeah, and then go, I won't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That would be my version
It's
of
important
events.
to know why things are wrong as well.
Yeah.
I think that's how you learn and how you grow.
Well,
but they all seem to have been quite remorseful.
I was just going to say,
happened, so
it does seem like they learned their lesson at the very least.
They've done their time. It's kind of a weirdly happy ending in a way. They served their time. Betty Jean Gooch has gotten over as much as you can, something like that. And everything seems to have worked out okay. They were pretty young when they got out.
Yeah.
They've all got their own careers now. Spencer is painting. Warren is an electrician and writer. And Eric wrote
Dreamweaver.
Dreamweaver. Eric is a writer. He wrote the book American Animals.
Oh yeah.
And the other guy, Mr. Pink.
The rich one.
Yeah, Mr. Pink, Chaz, who is kind of, you've got the main three and you've got him who's kind of out on his own.
Yeah, he was a bit of an outlier.
He
seemed like a bit of a douche.
He did try to distance himself a little bit. Yeah. It seemed like he was just super opportunistic. He came on at the last minute. They were just like, we need a driver. Oh, we know him. Let's get him. Yeah. He likes money.
He wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
To that I say, it's easy to be an entrepreneur when your daddy's already rich.
True. Yeah.
I'm amazed he got 7 years, actually.
Yeah.
Rich people don't, generally. Yeah, I don't know. I think really highly of this movie. I don't have a great deal more to say about it. I will say one of my other favourite scenes is probably the Reservoir Dogs conversation.
Yeah.
Because the way that's interspersed with the talking heads is genuinely really hilarious.
It's really funny. It's done really well.
Yeah. And I think it's just after that there's that really kind of quite severe tonal shift. Because the first half is actually quite jovial, quite funny, and then the second half is just like nail-biting tension, sweat dripping down your face. Yeah, they balance the tonal shifts seamlessly. Yeah, you need that, particularly when you've got scenes that are incredibly tense. You would need that comedy as well in there to relieve some of the tension, but then also allow you to cleanse your palate and then build yourself back up again. Yeah, you need those bits, and without that. That's probably, I think, the funniest bit in it, isn't it? Because Warren's going through all the names he gave people, and he says, I gave Chaz Mr. Pink just to fuck with him. And it cuts to Chaz and he goes, I didn't want to be Mr. Pink. Yeah, it's really well done. It is really well done. It's very funny. Yeah, good movie. Really good movie. Yeah, really, highly recommend. Really well made. And I'm very interested to see what Bart Layton does next. Yeah, me too. And if you haven't seen The Imposter, that's another hard recommend from me. Okay. What are we going to do next week? Australian animals. Australian animals, that's right. Also known as... Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I might insist that we watch at least the pilot episode of the TV adaptation as well for comparison purposes. Have you seen the television programme? Some of it. Okay. I didn't care for it. Oh, I cannot wait to watch it. But Until next week. We can guarantee that the movie's good because we have both seen it. Yeah. I'm excited. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can stay up to date with us on Twitter, Instagram or TikTok at @STH_pod or support us on Patreon. Everything will be linked in the description.